Welcome back to the podcast, the BBK podcast. This is your host, Brian Bullock, and we have a second time appearance by the man himself, Cizzlingsports. Welcome back, Cizzle.
Appreciate it. I guess I got to give you, as always, the obligatory what's up, brain? How you doing?
Doing well, and instead of trains passing by me now, I'm working for a company that tracks trains. So I guess life comes around full circle.
All right. So what does that mean? Where are you going to be 5 years from now? What's the next step in the evolution? Since I guess that's our schedule for doing our third pod, right?
Yeah, I don't know. Good question. I wouldn't mind still being with this same company, but I guess we'll see how the cookies crumble.
Awesome.
So welcome back. I think it's been 4 or 5 years, right?
I looked it up, and I think we did the first pod in December of 2015.
Okay, so it's been a while.
So it has been a while. That's right.
Yeah, that was right around the time I think we were just about to leave Trainland. We were a few months away from leaving Trainland. So, all right. Well, let's cut the nonsense here. So, as I've done with a few of the podcasts since his passing, and there really hasn't been too many since then, I've liked to open up the floor to discuss the legend Groovin Behooven, and I know out of all the people that like to attack the touts, and reasonably so, I don't know, you seem to have. I don't know if you've maybe stand out more because he's not here, but I feel like you've tried to pick up the torch, but like it's almost impossible to do what he did. So like what?
Yeah. Listen, I mean, there's only ever been one Groovin, and there's only ever going to be one Groovin. I'm not in any way, shape, or form interested in trying to be Groovin Part 2 or trying to be the face of exposing these fraud touts or anything like that. I just think that, probably what you said makes the most sense. I mean, since Groovin is gone, other people who shared his same view towards these scammers and these frauds probably stand out more. That's really what it's all about. If people have made comments about, Sis, you're number 2 or you're taking over, I mean, I'm not trying in any way, shape, or form to be like that, and I don't want people to think that way at all. I'm just trying to be, I don't know, a fraud tout, scammer, caller outer in his own right, without reference to anything that Groovin did, because he's the GOAT. He's the GOAT.
Yeah,
no one's ever going to be able to do it as well as he did, or to have as much knowledge as he had about all of these clowns out there.
Right. Yeah, and I don't think you'd be doing anything differently, but your voice might just stand out more because his voice is gone.
I think that's probably it. It's probably it. He was the loudest, and I don't mean that in a negative or pejorative way. I mean that as a compliment. And, with the silence that his passing has left, you're going to hear other people more, if that's the content that you're looking for and paying attention to, which is like 14 people on the internet total. So.
Pretty much. It's got a very small subset of people who actually enjoy this stuff, but
the number 14 came to mind only because, and I think we're going to talk about it when Ryan Goldberg published that great piece, that investigative piece he did about Randy Busack and pregame. I now remember one of Randy's immediate tweets was like, "Only 14 people on the internet care about this," or it's the same it's the same 14 nut jobs on Twitter that are out there over and over again. So that's why the number 14 came to mind.
Okay, I didn't catch that reference before, but I'm glad you brought that up. So when it comes to Groovin, what were your favorite interactions with him?
Well, I only had the pleasure of actually meeting him one time, and I wish meeting him in person. I mean, and I definitely wish it would have been more than that. And I don't just mean that in retrospect now that he's gone. I even before he passed, I wished that I had spent more time with him, one-on-one, just because he's just a really interesting guy, and he's obviously brilliant in a crazy person kind of way, and I just always respected what he did. As far as interactions go, I mean, there were plenty. I will tell you, there was one. It's just a funny story. This was years back. I don't even remember when. I mean, sometime I think maybe between 2010 and 2012, where Groovin was a post, and this was before people really got involved on Twitter, or at least the gambling Twitter folks really got involved. Where we were still out there on message boards, and you had got EOG, Ion Gaming, and then you had LVA Sports, and then you had Roughing the Punter, which Roughing the Punter is gone now, RTP, and LVA Sports is completely different now than what it was during that time period. That was the time period when Fez was the quote unquote lead moderator of LVA Sports, which was just a really silly way of them saying, pay us $100 a year, $200 a year, and get Fez's football picks, which, over the time period he was posting at LVA Sports, predictably crashed and burned to the tune of like negative 240 units or something like that. So Groovin was posting heavy on RTP, and I was posting. I wasn't even really posting. I was just reading LVA Sports. That was really the first message board that the sports betting message board that I really started paying attention to. And forgive my recollection for being so poor on this, but I was reading them simultaneously, right? So I would read LVA Sports, and then I would really go to RTP, and I would read RTP, and that's really where the good stuff was at that point in time for me. I mean, you had Groovin posting, Perpetual Check posting, the Chaperone posting, a handful of other really sharp people, and you could learn a lot of stuff amidst all the other usual terrible stuff that we post and we present on the internet and social media. But there was something where I think maybe it was Fez, maybe it was someone else at LVA Sports. I don't remember. It might have been this guy, John Netto. I don't recall, but someone was talking about how they spent money to buy off of the NFL 10, right? So they bought off of 10.5 to minus 10, or it was vice versa. They bought from plus 10 to plus 10.5. And the price they paid wasn't very good. And so I just remember joking about it at LVA Sports. And then Groovin at the time, even though he wasn't posting on LVA Sports, because he actually got banned from LVA Sports, but not for anything bad. He got banned, and I think Perpetual Check got banned, just because they immediately started pointing out all of the garbage that Fez had brought from Sharp Sports Betting over to LVA. And they immediately got banned. And so so what Groovin was doing, because it's Groovin and because he was just phenomenal, like he was reading LVA Sports every single day. He got someone else's membership to it. And then I think at some point even I gave him my membership and password so he could read it. But this was before that, and he was reading it every day. And so he read my post where I don't know, I said something stupid. This was this was over 10 years ago, right? When I was actually really, really stupid at sports betting, as opposed to just being mildly stupid now. and I was making fun of whoever it was that bought on or off the 10 at that particular price. And then I remember going, and then I did my daily thing where I went over to RTP to read the most recent post over there. And Groovin posted something making fun of me, calling me, said something like, there's not much going on at LVA today except some idiot is making fun of somebody for buying on and off of the 10, the NFL 10. And he was making fun of me for whatever I posted there, and it was probably stupid, yeah, at the time. And then, so years later, maybe 2014 or so, when I would, got to the point where I would chat with Groovin separately, whether through DMs. I think it was primarily through Twitter DMs. And we were just chatting about something, and I brought it up, and I said, yeah, you probably don't remember this, but you actually called me out a couple years ago for being stupid on the internet. And, and I was like, you were probably right. I don't remember what it was. And then, his response was just great. His response was like, yeah, I probably did that, and it probably was stupid, but don't take it personal because I call out a lot of stupid stuff, and that's just what I do. And it was just funny. I know it's not. This isn't like a tremendous story or anything, but it was just funny that one of the first interactions with Groovin, one that involved the two of us, was him calling me stupid, and when you think about it, like that's the absolute perfect way to start your relationship with Groovin.
Sure, and he'd always tell it like it was, so you probably were stupid. So
it probably was, and he was probably dead on accurate with whatever he said. So I had to laugh about that. But really, my most favorite Groovin thing ever is and I don't know if it's still there. It was the 30+ page thread at EOG about Johnny Detroit betting Groovin $10,000 that Groovin couldn't find errors in Fez's pregame record. Did you ever see that thread?
I have sadly not. It sounds like something I should have read.
It was tremendous. It was so Johnny Detroit. You know who Johnny Detroit is, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so I mean, for anyone who doesn't, Johnny Detroit was a former principal or owner in some regard at pregame, and he worked with Randy, and they sold losing sports picks to suckers. And I think Johnny Detroit was the one who he started the Fezzik Bet Like a Pro program and has like the first post of it over there pregame, where it, of course, sets forth a whole bunch of parameters that Fez never ever followed throughout the whole course of the Bet Like a Pro program. And he whatever. So Johnny Detroit's a former pregame guy, and then at some point he had a falling out with Randy. Now, prior to them having a falling out, Randy did this post where he said something like, Johnny Detroit has been a great contributor. He's made the difficult decision. He's going to leave pregame, and he's going to go back to college and finish his college degree, right? And, obviously anyone with an above room temperature IQ reads that and is like, this doesn't make any sense. This is dumb. And then, of course, like later on, I found some, in the archives, I found Johnny Detroit's bio on pregame where it said that he actually had already, in fact, graduated from college. So, and it was University of Michigan. So it was like his bio said something like University of Michigan graduate, and maybe it lists the disciplines. I don't know. I have a screenshot of it somewhere among the billion other screenshots I have. and then I think he said also Johnny Detroit also might have posted at EOG the same thing. Like this might have been in that Groovin thread where he said Johnny Detroit was like, I'm not afraid of anybody. Here's my real name. Here's where I live. I went to college. I graduated from University of Michigan, whatever, blah, blah, blah. And then, so, you get to this point in time where he's leaving pregame, and it's under this apparently obvious lie that he's leaving so he can go back to college as like a 40-year-old guy with a family or something like that.
Sure. That's
doesn't make any sense.
Isn't that what 40-year-old guys do?
Yeah, yes. Right? It's common. Yeah, with families, that's right. Guys who sleep with guns behind their pillows, which was like another post that Johnny Detroit did where he was trying to talk about his past life as like a bookie or something like that. He was like, I used to sleep with a gun right above my head, which when you think about it makes zero sense, because I don't know, if someone breaks in the middle of the night, you're going to be able to reach above you in the dark and fumble around and find your gun and shoot somebody. I don't know. It doesn't make any sense. But a lot of the stuff that these guys say don't make any sense to anyone with a clue. Yeah. So that happened, and then there was a point, and this was before I developed this horribly autistic habit of screenshotting everything. So I didn't get it. I wasn't able to grab it, but I swear I saw it. There was a tweet by Johnny Detroit where he was posting a letter from an attorney that he got from Randy in pregame. And his post was something like, I got this in the mail today. How ironic, I'm wearing my pregame t-shirt. And in the picture, he had his pregame polo on with the logo, over the left breast. And I swear to God, I can't find that tweet anywhere. So I got to believe Johnny Detroit deleted that, because of course it was a stupid thing to do if you get a legal demand letter. And, I have no idea what the letter said, but given Randy's propensity for litigation and how much he loves to sue people, it was probably something like, you've left the company, you're bound by a non-compete, stopped working in the gambling business. And that might have been at the time. Now I think we all know Johnny Detroit is now at Wager Talk with all those other pregame rejects like Marco in Vegas, Marco D'Angelo and Brian Leonard and whatever, all those other idiots. All the guys who lost hundreds of units or whatever collectively at pregame and then to reset their record and started Wager Talk, as is common, right, among touts.
Obviously, yeah.
So that's Johnny Detroit. Well, before Johnny Detroit left pregame, he just started this thread over at EOG, and it had got a really long title or something, I don't remember what it was, but the point of it was this: he was like, I'll bet anybody out there $10,000 that you can't find an error in Fezzik's record keeping at pregame, right? And like no BS, man. Like it was almost instantaneous. The net ding. There's a new post. You get the email. Ding. There's been a new post to a thread you're subscribed to. Yeah. Groovin has responded to, Johnny Detroit. I mean, it was almost instantaneous, right? And in typical Groovin fashion, it was ding. You went to it. It was like post 1, and then it was like post 2. It was like ding. Don't mind if I do. And then it was like, a 12-paragraph post from Groovin. I don't even know how many words it was. It goes on like the whole. You're scrolling down, right? You're rolling your mouse wheel to read this whole thing. Boom, 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 boom. And he just destroyed him with 2 obvious, blatant record manipulations or record errors by Fez in his Bet Like a Pro program. And it was like instantaneous. And it was like, boom, okay, thanks. Let me know when I'm getting my $10,000.
It was like he was waiting for that, like.
Yeah, it was. He was ready for it. It was. You'd almost think that maybe they collaborated behind the scenes, right? If you didn't know how much Groovin hated these idiots, you might have thought, okay, this is going to be funny. Let's do this. But no, I mean this was a real thing. And then the thread went on for 30-something pages, and there were only 2 people in the whole thread who were defending Johnny Detroit, right? So Groovin does his post, and he's like, boom, I win, pay me my $10,000. And then, of course, predictably, Johnny Detroit's like, no, that doesn't count. That doesn't count. You didn't meet the challenge. I'm not sending you anything. Ha ha, I told you. All of our record keeping is legit. So the thread goes on and on and on and on, and throughout all of these posts, there are really only 2 people, and there's probably, I don't even know, maybe 50 different people posting in this thread. There's only 2 people defending the Johnny Detroit position that Groovin did not win the bet, and it's Johnny Detroit and Fez's brother.
Of course.
And that's it. And there were people at EOG who absolutely hated Groovin. I mean, hated him. Other posts and other threads, I mean, you could just see it. I mean, it was. I mean, there was one guy. I think maybe he went by the handle Rainbow, and he told Groovin he was going to take a dump on his head at one point, and it wasn't like in a joking way. It was really vicious. I mean, people hated him, and I kid you not, all of these people that hated Groovin showed up in that thread and were like, "Yeah, Groovin won. Pay him $10,000." And it was just one of my favorite. It was just one of my favorite interwebs experiences to just follow that thread over the however long it lasted and survived. And you'll see. That's why you see. And Groovin, of course, never let it go. I mean, he never let it go.
No.
I mean, for years, Groovin was, hey, Johnny Detroit, let me know when you're going to pay me my $10,000 or donate it to a horse racing charity, I think, which was Groovin's thing. He's like, donate it to charity. And so you'll see, I think, from time to time that, even though Groovin passed away, you'll see Norm Gamble has kind of carried he's carried on with the Johnny Detroit debt of owing Groovin $10,000. And I think it was something came up years ago, and I don't remember who said it. I really don't remember who said it. It might have been No Limit Sports. Do you remember that guy?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. He just vanished off the face of the planet, which, if you followed No Limit Sports' posting history, he's the type of guy you would expect would just vanish off the face of the planet. Like, it wasn't a surprising thing. It might have been No Limit Sports, because he knew No Limit Sports was friendly with Johnny Detroit and maybe some of those other guys, or could have been someone else. But it came out that Johnny Detroit didn't really want to do that. The allegation was that Randy actually forced Johnny Detroit to make that bet in an attempt to shut Groovin up. And it obviously backfired, terribly on them. But maybe not so much because, to this day, I guess Johnny Detroit still hasn't paid that $10,000 to the charity of Groovin's choosing. So
if you could find that thread, like, or anyone listening to this, if you know where that thread is, please respond to the link for this podcast and let us know, because I would like to take a look at that.
Absolutely. I know. I think I've looked for it and I couldn't find it, but
okay.
I'm not great at like the real granular internet research stuff. I mean, like, I'm pretty good at finding stuff on Twitter when you have a relatively easy filter to use. But I don't know. Like, I know Cajun Cooks is pretty good at this stuff. He might be able to dig it up.
Okay.
But some other people, any of you internet savvy people out there, if you could find the Johnny Detroit Groovin, and now it's coming back to me a little bit more. I think Groovin might have even renamed the thread something like Johnny Detroit owes Groovin $10,000 and is stiffing as usual or something. So that was tremendous. Sucks, man. Really miss that guy. Really do.
Yeah. It was a sad day when I learned about that. I know I had a couple people reach out to me saying, "Is that true? Is that true?" I don't know. I can only assume it is, because people who are not who normally don't act this way are very sad, and
that's right.
Assume that it was true, but all right. So kind of a sort of a transition. We're going to go into the RJ versus Gizmodo case, and that's the one that involves everyone's favorite journalist in Seville, Ryan Goldberg. And
absolutely.
And for those who might not be familiar with it, please feel free to provide like a little brief overview of the case that RJ brought against Ryan and Gizmodo.
All right. So, and this is probably for anyone who's actually listening to this is probably like the only valuable information like I can provide, right? I mean, this is what I do, so I can talk about this stuff, and like everything else we can talk about might be horrible and terrible, and people may just want to not listen to it, which would be fine. But this might be the actual only valuable information anyone gleans from this. Although maybe we'll have some funny stuff later. I don't know. All right, so the last time we did the pod, Randy had sued Vegas Runner. Do you remember that?
Yeah, I do remember that.
Okay. So I know if anyone cares, I don't know, are your old pods still available for people to listen to?
Yeah, I'll post a link to it. I have a Google Drive document that I've created that's a public document. I can even probably put it in my profile, but I'll share it with this pod as long as I remember.
All right, because I saved it. I know I downloaded it and saved it, and I made my wife listen to it during the Iowa Stanford Rose Bowl.
Oh, right. It was in bowl season. I forgot.
Yeah, I made her listen to it, and she was predictably she was like, "You guys sound like a bunch of backslapping idiots." Which,
wrong.
Listen, we're on brand at least. Let's put it that way. So I mentioned that if anyone wants to listen to it, I think we had a fairly decent legal discussion about when Randy sued Vegas Runner, also known as Ace, also known as Gianni the Greek, also known as, I think his real name is John Corrales. Most people know who this guy is. This guy does somehow he does UFC gambling videos for Fox or something. I mean, whatever. Other media executives, as usual, are fooled by these morons, and he now has a platform. And of course, I think he's also part of Wager Talk now. But so we talked about that case, and in short, that was Randy sued Vegas Runner for breaching his employment contract when Vegas Runner left pregame. They ultimately settled that case. We talked about that on that prior pod. People can listen if they want. They ultimately settled that case. We don't know what the settlement was. Settlements usually are confidential in nature, so we'll never know. They settled that one, and I know we also then talked about the other case where the company Droisis sued Pregame and sued Randy individually, claiming that he stiffed them on, I think, like $1 million under a contract, and it seemed to me like it was a web design contract. But I know we talked about that one too. So that one's out there. So because Randy can't keep himself out of trouble, in between the last pod and this one, he filed another lawsuit, one that was quite interesting, in fact. Now, in June of 2016, Ryan Goldberg, and he's at Ryan Goldberg, it's that simple, he published an investigative piece about Pregame and Randy. And it's my pinned tweet. It's been my pinned tweet for, I don't know, since it came out. So what is that, like 4 years or something like that? And the article is tremendous. Ryan did a fantastic job. Everyone should go and read it. We're not going to talk about the article because people can go and read it for themselves. But probably the best thing about the article is that it tracks and shout out to other people on Twitter for actually aggregating the information. It tracks all of the Pregame touts' performances over a certain period of time. And you can go look at that chart, and it has it by name. So you can, even though like Marco is not there anymore, he's at Wager Talk, you can see how atrocious he was at Pregame. You can see how atrocious Vegas Runner was. You can see how atrocious Ryan Leonard was. You can see all that in the article. It's great. And it has a lot of other tremendous information there. Ryan did a great job. So, predictably, Randy, he didn't like it. Right? The other part of it, so Randy took issue with two primary things. Number one, he claimed that the records that were tabulated in Ryan's piece were inaccurate and portrayed the performance incorrectly, the performance of the touts incorrectly. And number two, he took issue with the fact that Ryan reported on affiliate relationships apparently between Pregame and offshore sportsbooks, right? Everyone who's listening to this, if anyone is, probably knows what affiliate relationships are, right? I mean, you know what affiliate relationships are, right?
Sure, yeah.
Okay. So, I mean, in short, a sportsbook pays someone to drive losing gamblers to them. It makes sense, and that can usually be in as form of like a cut of losses or a cut of deposits or something along those lines. Ryan talked about it a lot in the article. Well, Randy took issue with that. He's claiming that there was no evidence of affiliate relationships, and that was defamation because it was casting a negative light on the core of his business, which was selling picks, selling gambling information. So, and there was some procedural stuff that happened in between the actual filing of the lawsuit, like a demand letter went out, and Randy posts the demand letter. I think he posted it through Scribd, and he gave a link so everyone could go out and read it. And he was thumping his chest. This is where Randy was doing the great "Don't F with Vegas" hashtags, which don't F. And I'm going to get my $10 million, and you owe me $10 million in damages for defamation and for all this stuff. And he hired the attorney who represented Hulk Hogan in that lawsuit against Gawker and won a defamation judgment, I think it was an invasion of privacy judgment in the amount of $140 million, which ultimately led to the bankruptcy of Gawker, right? And so Randy was thumping his chest about how he hired the same attorney. By the way, no. I don't mean to say anything negative about any of the attorneys involved in the litigation. The attorney who represented Hulk Hogan is obviously a very skilled plaintiff's attorney when it comes to defamation and invasion of privacy cases. So we get down the road where he sends his letter. It's like fix it and retract it. Gawker. Well, at the time, I think it's Gizmodo because by that time, all the Gawker assets had been sold to Gizmodo through bankruptcy. That's what happened. And generally, and again, when I'm trying to talk about this stuff from a very, very high general level, all right, just to try to make the concepts a little bit more digestible.
Sure.
The Hulk Hogan lawsuit bankrupted Gawker. In other words, Gawker didn't have enough money to pay that judgment that Hulk Hogan got against them. When you can't pay your debts in America, you can file for bankruptcy. Again, very general concepts here. So Gawker filed for bankruptcy. One of the things that happened in the bankruptcy was Gawker and all of its assets were sold to Gizmodo. So by the time it came around for Randy to sue somebody, he had to sue Gizmodo because Gawker was effectively gone and out of the picture at that point in time. So he sued Gizmodo and he sued Ryan individually. And he sued them in New York state court because generally as a plaintiff, you always want to be in state court as opposed to being in federal court when it comes to personal injury actions. And I'm considering defamation as like a personal injury action. It's not like a breach of contract case, right? It's not a property damage case. It's you injured me, which is similar to, okay, I slipped and fell because of your negligence, I'm hurt. You said bad and libelous things about me, and I'm hurt. Plaintiffs generally want to be in state court because state court juries generally award more money in damages than federal court juries do.
Okay.
And speaking generally, again, this is because state court juries tend, on the whole, collectively tend to be less sophisticated and less intelligent than juries that you can form from in a federal court.
Okay.
And a lot of it has to do with the fact that geographically speaking, you can pull from a much, much, much larger group of people in federal courts than you can in state court.
Okay.
So you can imagine if you're just pulling a jury from, I don't know, the city that you live in versus pulling a jury from the top half of the state you live in, right? The attorneys and the judge are able to find really much more qualified jurors.
Sure.
So they filed in state court. Now, what happened was when he filed, the bankruptcy was still going on. The Gizmodo bankruptcy was gigantic. It's not the type of thing that can be wrapped up quickly. This was a massive, massive case. And what you do is you have a trustee in bankruptcy. A trustee is an agent of the United States of America. And generally speaking, the goal of the trustee is to come in. The trustee takes control of all of the petitioner's assets. The petitioner is the person asking for bankruptcy relief, the plaintiff, so to speak. The trustee takes control of all the assets and basically steps in as the owner and manager of all affairs relating to the person filing for bankruptcy. In that case, again, Gawker. So that proceeding, that bankruptcy proceeding, was going on contemporaneous with the state court lawsuit that Randy and Pregame filed against Gizmodo and Ryan. Now, what happened was, because there were things going on in the bankruptcy that impacted whether the state court lawsuit could proceed, the attorneys for Gizmodo and Ryan, who were also exceptional attorneys, what they did was they, in effect, put a stop on the state court case, pulled certain issues out of it for consideration by the federal judge in the bankruptcy case, and argued that the bankruptcy court had to resolve these issues before the state court case could go forward.
Okay.
All right. Now, against this whole backdrop, you have to understand that Gawker, as part of it putting its bankruptcy together, you have to do a petition. And as part of doing a petition, you have to identify all of your creditors. All right? So an identified creditor of Gawker was, of course, a potential creditor. You have to identify the potential also. A potential creditor in the Gawker bankruptcy was Pregame and Randy, right? Because they had filed their litigation demand letter, or their demand for retraction letter. They had put Gizmodo, Gawker, whoever, they put everybody on notice that they had a legal claim against them that they intended to enforce, which they ultimately filed on. Now, because they were identified as a creditor in the bankruptcy case, they were receiving, through the attorneys, Randy and Pregame, they were receiving notice of things that were going on in the bankruptcy case. One of the things that was going on was the sale from Gizmodo to Gawker. Okay? Now, as part of that sale, there was a release included in favor of Gizmodo. A release means generally that if you give me a release, you can't sue me for anything that's part of that release forever. Okay. And this is common. This happens in every single settlement. In fact, it's rarely the case where you settle a lawsuit and don't have a release in it. And the release always, generally is, look, you release me from any and all claims you have against me arising out of the facts that comprise this lawsuit. Anything that exists from the beginning of the world until the date of this settlement agreement. Something like that, okay? So now as part of the sale, and you can imagine anyone buying Gawker would want a release. I want a release approved by a federal judge that says nobody can sue me as the new owner of Gawker for anything that Gawker did wrong before the sale. Because if I don't get that, I might be buying unlimited liability. Because I don't know what's out there. I don't know what other claims other people on Earth may have against Gawker that they may then try to raise against me. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. So there was a release in favor of Gizmodo. There was also a release in favor of the individual journalists who wrote for Gizmodo properties like Deadspin. And this may come up. This is kind of an important nuance. It may come up later when we talk about other stuff. Deadspin wasn't a company. Deadspin was an asset, right? So it's just like an asset, like any other piece of property. It was an asset of Gawker. The fact that it wasn't its own company was, somewhat important. Just maybe for later when we talk about stupid things that other people have said on the internet, like Clay Travis. But let me not jump ahead. So there was a release. There were releases in there. Now, Randy, and this may have been strategic. I don't want to, I wasn't involved in the case, obviously, so I don't want to assume I know why people made certain strategic decisions. This may have been strategic. What they did was, in short, is that they never objected to the sale that the bankruptcy court approved from Gawker to Gizmodo. So they never objected to the releases, among everything else. So, smartly, Ryan and Gizmodo's attorneys, they pulled the issue out and they went back to the bankruptcy judge. And they argued, Judge, you, as the federal judge, you have to enter an order preventing the state court lawsuit from going forward, which a federal judge can do. They absolutely can do it.
Okay.
And so he said, Judge, so they said, we're Gizmodo. Judge, bankruptcy judge, I'm Gizmodo. I was given a release from all of these claims that they're alleging against me in the state court case. You have to tell them they can't pursue those claims against me in state court. They did a similar argument. They made a similar argument in favor of Ryan. Now, ultimately, the way it shook out, and there was like a big deal. I mean, there was like a mini trial in the bankruptcy court about this. I mean, you talk about witnesses, cross-examination, document production, all that kind of stuff.
Is that not like, for someone who doesn't really know much about that kind of thing? Is that common? And that's not very common in bankruptcy cases, I'm assuming.
It's very common. What it was
okay.
I said it was like a mini trial. It's called an evidentiary hearing.
Okay.
And what that is basically like a mini trial that happens to allow a judge to make very discrete decisions within the broader context of a lawsuit, right? So think of it as like removing issues from contention prior to an actual ultimate trial of a case.
Okay.
And so this was a big deal. This was a really big deal. And believe me, I know this because I read like all of the papers on it. I wasted a lot of hours of my life reading all of those papers. Partly because it interested me, partly because I don't know. I thought I could find other stuff in there to make fun of Randy about. So here's how it shook out. So the bankruptcy judge agreed with Gizmodo and held, that's right, you're done, Randy, in pregame. You can't sue Gizmodo in state court. Your defamation case is done. All right? Now, you got to keep this in mind. The relief that Randy and pregame wanted wasn't just money from those guys. In fact, actually, it was kind of funny. Randy actually did a bunch of tweets where he was like, I don't care about money. This is about right and wrong. I don't care. People need to stand up and they need to be responsible for their false accusations and he used the phrase, this was a fantastic phrase. He said, they're bankrupt lies. It was hilarious. Now, let's not forget, like at the beginning with the don't F with Vegas stuff, Randy was thumping his chest about how he's got a $10 million claim. This is typical Randy. So the other relief, the complete and separate type of relief that they wanted was they wanted an order. It's called an injunction. That's the technical legal term. But what an injunction is it's basically an order by a judge that tells someone they have to do something or tells someone they have to stop doing something. It regulates conduct, generally speaking, has nothing to do with money.
Okay.
They wanted an injunction forcing Gizmodo to delete Ryan's piece. Get rid of it. Take it down, stop publishing it so the world doesn't ever so no one else in the world can ever see it or read it again. Now, remember, Ryan is an independent contractor. So he has no control over what's published on any of these sites, right?
Yeah.
Well, once Gizmodo is out of the case, well, at that point, Randy, pregame, you've totally lost the ability to get rid of the article. Because Gizmodo is the only one who can take it down. If you can't sue them anymore, there's no one you can force to take it down. Now, so that was a big win for Gizmodo in the federal court. And the federal judge, again, I said it's hard for me to speculate on strategy, but I will say that in those papers, the federal judge made some sort of comment about how Randy and pregame, you were on notice of all this stuff all the time, and you sat on your rights and chose not to object. So that's why part of me thinks that maybe they made a mistake. But then, again, I can't know for sure. But if they did make a mistake and they lost the case against Gizmodo because they failed to object to something in the bankruptcy court, is utterly hilarious if that's what happened. That's great. So the Gizmodo won, and then unfortunately Ryan lost. The federal judge said, listen, the release language with respect to all of the independent contractor journalists, it's ambiguous. I don't think it makes sense. And sorry, I don't think this precludes the state court case. The state court case against Ryan can go forward. Well, all right. Now let's talk about something else. Let's talk about another very important piece of this whole puzzle. Are you aware that Hulk Hogan didn't have to pay for his attorneys in his lawsuit? Did you know that?
I think I might have remembered that at a certain point, but it kind of slipped my mind until now.
Okay. His bills were paid. That litigation was funded by that Silicon Valley billionaire. And I'm going to mangle his name. I don't know how to pronounce it. But I think is it Peter Thiel? Thiel? T-H-E-I-L?
Yeah. I mean, I butcher names all the time. So, yeah, that sounds right.
Right. Are you drinking a beer?
Yes, I am.
You just reminded me. I brought a beer for this, and I left it in the fridge. So I'm going to go get that while I talk.
Yeah, go get it.
I'm embarrassed.
I'm going to go get another one.
Oh gosh, people are going to love this part of the podcast.
Oh yeah.
All right, so let's get back to. Oh, bro, you got it. Where are you in a garage?
I'm in my basement. Yeah, I got the beer fridge right behind me.
That's awesome. All right, so Peter Thiel was fun. Somebody's calling. Are you still here?
Yeah, it's kind of breaking up. Somebody's calling you. That's probably what the.
All right, we're back.
Okay.
Sorry about that. All right, so and this wasn't a secret, by the way. This all came out, and I guess there was a history with. I'm just going to say Peter because if I'm mangling his last name, I don't want to keep mangling it. There was a history with Peter and Gawker, and I guess Gawker wrote a piece about him or something. I'm not really sure. I don't really know what it is. All I know is there was a history that created some really bad blood. And so Peter went on, and I believe he admitted this, he was going to try to take Gawker down. in a whatever. I think that might be the best way to say it. So he funded the Hulk Hogan lawsuit. So Hulk Hogan, and I can only imagine how expensive the legal bills were for that. I mean, those were probably, at $3-4 million legal bills, probably. At a minimum. I mean, it could be worse. I don't do personal injury law like that, so it's hard for me to guess, but it was definitely 7 figures in legal fees. Okay, so let's jump. So we have this backdrop where we know Peter was paying to fund litigation against Gawker. Okay? Now, we come back to, we're in the middle of this bankruptcy case. The judges ruled in favor of Gizmodo. The judges ruled against Ryan. Right? Gizmodo's out. Ryan's still in. State court case can go forward against Ryan. Well, totally unrelated. Now, let me back up, because there was a very important tweet by Randy in June of 2016 when the article came down. Now, let me just pull that up. Okay, here we go. So on June 27, 2016, somebody asked Randy, so I take it you're paying your own legal bills, not Peter? Randy responded with no comment and then the smiley face keyboard emoji. Okay, so the colon and the right parenthesis.
Yeah.
Right. He didn't even use the face because he's Randy. So that to me sure sounds like Randy wasn't going to pay his own legal bills for the lawsuit against Gizmodo and Gawker, right?
Yeah.
That's what it sounds like. I mean, anybody can. Maybe I'll post this. People can look at it and make their own conclusion. I don't know for sure, but that's certainly what it sounds like. Now, you come back to the bankruptcy case. Well, I guess Hulk Hogan and perhaps Randy's case, these weren't the only two that Peter was funding against Gawker. There appears to have been others. Now, because the bankruptcy trustee is responsible for maintaining the value of the bankruptcy of Gawker, the person who filed for bankruptcy, okay? One of the fiduciary duties of the bankruptcy trustee is to make sure that if he or she's going to sell, I think it was a he in this case, if he's going to sell Gawker, he owes a fiduciary duty to Gawker to try to get the highest and best price possible. Make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, the trustee didn't seem to appreciate that Peter was funding all of this litigation against Gawker. And the trustee kind of went after Peter and started seeking information. This is called discovery. Basically, it's give me documents, answer my questions. I'm going to sit you down for a deposition. I'm going to ask you. You're going to testify under oath. I'm gathering information about my case.
Okay.
The trustee started this process against Peter. And, of course, Peter fought back through his attorneys. And so they had to go in front of the judge. There was lengthy motion practice on this too, which of course I also read, which is embarrassing. And the trustee was arguing, Judge, Peter is intentionally trying to devalue Gawker. That's illegal. I, as Gawker, I stand in Gawker's shoes, I have claims against Peter. Money damages claims where he's going to have to be, if I win, he's going to be responsible for the diminution in value of Gawker because of his conduct. And, the trustee cited all of the articles and the statements and the public comments by Peter, things like, I have I'm paraphrasing, like I have something against Gawker. I admit I paid for Hulk Hogan's bills, et cetera, et cetera. A targeted campaign, I think was the phrase. Peter's engaged in a targeted campaign to intentionally devalue Gawker. Well, in theory, that's a valid legal claim. If I could have sold Gawker for $300 million, but I only got $250 for it because you've funded 15 lawsuits against them, guess what? You're going to owe me the difference if I win my case against you. And so the trustee was saying, Judge, that's the basis for all of this information that I need from Peter, all of this discovery, and he's got to answer it, and he's got to produce documents, and he's going to have to sit for a deposition. Well, Peter didn't want to do that, and I think that's fair. If I was in his shoes, I wouldn't want to do that either. It's not because I think he hasn't had anything to hide, but because it's just a huge time sink and a drain on, I guess, his other obviously profitable ventures and things that he has going on in his life. So Peter and the trustee entered into their own settlement agreement. And as you might imagine or guess, that settlement agreement included a promise by Peter to do what? You want to take a shot at
it? Surprise me.
It included a promise by Peter to stop funding litigation against Gawker or any prospective purchasers of Gawker like Gizmodo.
Okay.
And of course, in return for that, Peter got a total release of claims. He's not going to get sued by the trustee. He doesn't have to. Not that the money probably meant anything to him at all. I mean, the guy's a billionaire. He's not going to get sued by the trustee. He doesn't have to deal with all this discovery nonsense and maybe bad publicity that goes with it. Although he didn't really strike me as a guy who cared about that. But so now we've come to a point where Randy has a pending claim against Ryan. That's for money only. Remember, not the ability to get rid of the article.
Right.
For money only that he's publicly stated he's not even really interested in. It appears that up to that point, and by this point, I mean, this is like 2 years of litigation just on the defamation, the Randy versus Ryan case. It appears Peter had been paying the legal bills for that, which, again, knowing the attorneys involved in that case, there were big-time attorneys involved on both sides of that case. Those were, I guarantee you, ridiculously expensive by that point. So Randy's got a pending claim against Ryan for money only that he said he's not even really interested in. Peter had been paying his bills, and it appears now that Peter has promised not to do that anymore. What do you think happened? Randy contacts Gizmodo/Ryan. Hey, let's settle. If you know anything about Randy, you've heard plenty of people say that he's cheap as dirt. He's not going to pay any more legal bills to go forward with this case. I don't know what Ryan's situation is. Could Ryan have paid a $10 million judgment? Maybe he could have. I don't know. Maybe he couldn't have. But you have to at least assume the possibility that Ryan wouldn't be able to pay any money judgment you got against him anyway, even if you were able to get one when you've already stupidly publicly stated you're not interested in money anyway. So, predictably, Randy reaches out to Gizmodo, and I wasn't involved in this, by the way. I don't want anyone to think that I was involved in this case anyway. It's not. I'm just telling you what happened based on my experience. At some point, Randy's attorneys pick up the phone and they call and they say, all right, let's settle. Meaning, Randy doesn't want to pay any more legal bills. Randy doesn't want to start paying legal bills for this. Maybe because he's cheap, maybe because everyone knows the case is garbage. We're not really going to get anything out of Ryan that we care about or that's going to be collectible, we think, although maybe it would surprise everyone if Ryan showed up and wound up being like a billionaire in his own right. That would be tremendous. I hope that's the case, Ryan, if you listen to this. So they say, let's settle, okay? Now, smartly and maybe brilliantly, of course, again, I'm guessing, Ryan and Gizmodo's attorneys say, up yours. You have no leverage anymore. You're done. We know what happened. Everybody knows what's going on here. All that stuff involving the trustee and Peter is all part of the public record, right? None of that's confidential stuff. That's all in publicly filed documents. Everything that happened in the court case. So they were basically like, yeah, up yours. And I don't know how it went down. I really don't. I mean, I know what the end result was, but I don't know how it went down. But I would absolutely freaking love it if it went down as follows. Like Randy called and was like, just give me $5 million. And they're like, yeah, no. Click. Hey, it's Randy again. Tell you what, I'll take $2 million. Yeah, no. Click. All right, it's Randy again. Give me $100,000. No, Clint, I would absolutely love it if it went down like that, because I've been on the Gizmodo side of settlement discussions like that, and they're always so much fun when you have all the leverage and you can basically just keep hanging up on people. It's absolutely hilarious, especially when they do it by email, and you have this chain of things with consecutive emails that say 5 million, 2 million, 100,000. Okay, give me $5,000, and the only thing in between each of those emails is you saying no. It's awesome.
Yeah, you could just feel the desperation.
You can feel it, so it's hilarious. So I hope that's how it went down. I have no idea if it really did.
Right.
I hope it went down that way.
Let's just pretend it did.
So it went down until ultimately they get to the point where the settlement is, it's hilarious to even call this a settlement, because basically Gizmodo and Ryan won everything. Randy said, okay, just post a link at the beginning of the story that's my response to the article. That's it. That's all it is. No money changing hands. I mean, sure, there's releases back and forth, I'm sure, which, again, as I mentioned, is like commonplace for this stuff. No money changes hands. Randy's just like, give me a link. Not even something posted on the page, right? Just a link. And I think it said something like, at the beginning it said, if you want to see Randall Busak's response, please click this link, period. Like, that's it. Like, that's all it was. And I got Brian. This was phenomenal. So by that point, I think we all pretty much know that Randy wasn't going to pay an attorney to draft a proper response to the article, right? So what it was, and again, I don't know this for sure, but when you read it, if you read it, you really kind of knew it was up. What Randy got out of it was a link to some rambling nonsense that he himself authored in response to the article. And it was not dissimilar from this horrible post he made on pregame that said something like, the 27 deceptions of Deadspin. And it really is like a third grader wrote it. Right? You can tell no attorney laid eyes or pen on any part of it. And all they did was like broker the deal and said, and this is fine. I mean, the attorney doesn't do anything wrong. If Randy's like, I'm not paying you to do it, and the attorney's not going to do it. I mean, we're a service industry. That's how we operate. Randy, so what he got out of it, what he did, so remember, this started with don't F with Vegas. They're going to pay me $10 million. What are you going to do when RJ Bell comes for you, in the Hulk Hogan voice? I mean, I think somebody posted that. I saw that somewhere too. It started with all of that, and it ended up with no money, article stays posted, Randy gets a link to his rambling, vomit on a page, stream of consciousness rebuttal to what's in the piece, which of course, Brian, it has no evidence like attached to it or linked in it. It's just all his. We call it just argument of counsel. It's just all just his testimony, saying all of that is BS with no really support. Like he never produced what he ever claimed was the real records of all of those counts.
Of course,
right? Of course not. He didn't include that in his response. And the best thing, this is it. I mean, this is the freaking cherry on the top of all this. You know that link that they let him post? It doesn't even work anymore. It's gone. It's gone. And I think that had something to do with another transfer of ownership from Gawker to whoever. And whatever Randy's settlement agreement was with them, I think it only applied to Gawker. Like, it didn't apply to any successor owners or anyone in interest to Deadspin or something like that. I think that's how it went down. The point is, it's freaking hilarious. The link is broken now. It's gone. After all that nonsense, you wound up with absolutely nothing out of the case, and Ryan's article stays up there, posted for everyone to read.
Well, and I haven't read the article in a while, but didn't Ryan even acknowledge that he tried to reach out to RJ and he just declined to?
Oh yeah, plenty of yeah. He did. Ryan, I think that's written in the piece. I mean, Ryan, he listed his attempts for on-the-record comment prior to publishing the article.
Right.
And if memory serves correctly, the only thing Randy would do was he would send me written questions and I'll answer them in writing. which means nothing because you can send him a list of questions. He'll cross out 9 of them and he'll respond to the 10th one, which basically says you're a liar or something like